I'm Evelyn, 30, female. I live in a small, quiet apartment that has always been my sanctuary, a place filled with books and the gentle hum of my computer. As a freelance translator, my life is built around words, understanding their nuances, their power, and the hidden meanings between the lines. It was this skill that ultimately helped me decipher the ugly truth hidden behind the perfect smile of the woman my brother was about to marry. She gave me an ultimatum, thinking I would simply break and disappear, but she severely underestimated what happens when you try to erase a translator from her own family's story. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. My brother, Leo, had always been the golden child of our family. He was a year older than me, a successful financial analyst with a charisma that could charm anyone. We were close, or so I had always believed. We shared a childhood of inside jokes, scraped knees, and whispered secrets after our parents, Richard and Helen, had tucked us into bed. Our parents were simple, wonderful people. Dad was a retired engineer, a man of logic and quiet strength, while Mom was a retired teacher, the heart of our family, full of warmth and endless stories. Family was everything to us. It was a solid, unbreakable foundation. Then Chloe entered the picture. On the surface, she was perfect. A social media manager with a dazzling smile, impeccable style, and a confidence that bordered on intimidating, she seemed to be everything Leo had ever wanted. She was ambitious, beautiful, and utterly captivated by him. When Leo introduced her to us a year and a half ago, we were all thrilled for him. She said all the right things, complimented my mother's cooking, talked about stock portfolios with my father, and even feigned an interest in my work, calling it absolutely fascinating. She quickly became a fixture at our weekly Sunday dinners. At first, her presence was a welcome novelty. She brought expensive bottles of wine and artisan desserts, things my simple, middle-class family rarely indulged in. She would regale us with stories of her glamorous job, of product launches and influencer parties, and we would listen. Why died? Leo looked at her with such adoration that any small flicker of doubt I felt, I dismissed. How could I question his happiness? He was glowing, but as the months went on, I started noticing subtle shifts. Chloe had a way of steering every conversation back to herself, or to her and Leo as a unit. She would subtly correct my mother's grammar or offer helpful fashion tips that felt more like criticisms. She once told me my freelance career was cute, but that I should consider a real job with a corporate ladder. I'd forced a smile and changed the subject, telling myself she just didn't understand my world. Leo never seemed to notice these slights. He was so deeply in love that he saw her through a filter of perfection. The engagement was a grand affair. Leo proposed on a trip to Paris, and the photos Chloe posted were a masterclass in social media perfection. The Eiffel Tower, the diamond ring, the curated captions about finding her soulmate. Our family was overjoyed. The wedding planning began almost immediately, and it was clear from the start that this would be Chloe's show. She wanted a lavish, six-figure wedding at a historic estate, something far beyond what our family was accustomed to. My parents, wanting to contribute as they had always planned, offered a substantial amount of their savings. Chloe accepted it with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, remarking that it would be a lovely down payment on the floral arrangements. The comment made my stomach clench, but again, I saw the look on Leo's face and said nothing. I was to be the maid of honor, a role I accepted with a mix of pride and apprehension. I wanted to be there for my brother to support him, but a quiet, persistent alarm bell was ringing in the back of my mind. I just couldn't figure out why. The wedding was just 2 months away when Chloe asked me to meet her for lunch. She picked an exclusive, high-end restaurant that made me feel underdressed in my simple blouse and trousers. She, of course, looked like she had stepped out of a magazine, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her designer handbag placed carefully on the table. She ordered a salad that cost more than my weekly grocery bill and sipped on sparkling water while I nursed a simple iced tea. "Evelyn, I'm so glad we could do this," she began, her voice smooth as silk. "With the wedding getting so close, there are a few things I wanted to discuss with you just between us." I nodded, assuming she wanted to talk about maid of honor duties, the bachelorette party, the speech, or perhaps the color of the bridesmaid dresses. "Of course, Chloe, anything. I'm here to help." She took a delicate bite of her salad, chewed thoughtfully, and then placed her fork down. Her bright blue eyes locked onto mine, and the charming smile she usually wore was gone. In its place was a look of cold, hard calculation. Leo is my entire world, she said, her tone suddenly devoid of any warmth, and his family is about to become my family. I need it to be perfect, no complications, no loose ends. I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by loose ends. Chloe leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Let me be direct, Evelyn. You and I are very different people. You're quiet. You live a small life, my world, our world, Leo's and mine. It's much bigger. We're going to be in the public eye, networking with important people. We need to project a certain image. I stared at her, completely bewildered. What does my small life have to do with your image? Her lips curved into a semblance of a smile, but it was all ice. Your presence is grounding in a way that isn't beneficial. You don't quite fit. You're the quiet, bookish sister. It's a sweet narrative, but it's not the one I'm building for our future. The words hit me like physical blows. She was dissecting my life, my personality, and deeming it unworthy. I'm Leo's sister. I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. I'm not a narrative. I'm his family. Exactly, she said, nodding as if I had finally understood. And families evolve. Leo is starting a new life with me. He needs to be focused on that, not pulled back into the past. She took a sip of her water, then delivered the final, devastating blow. I've been thinking about what would be the best wedding gift anyone could give us, and I realized it's not something you can buy. She paused, letting the silence hang between us. The greatest gift for our wedding is if you disappear from our family. I could feel the blood drain from my face. The background noise of the restaurant faded into a dull roar in my ears. Disappear? What are you talking about? After the wedding, she clarified, her voice chillingly calm. I want you to move, get a job in another city, another country even. You're a translator, you can work from anywhere. It's the perfect solution. You can tell everyone you got an amazing opportunity you couldn't pass up. Leo will be sad, of course, but he'll get over it. He has me. Your parents will adjust. It's for the best, really, a clean break. I was speechless. I was being asked to surgically remove myself from my own family to suit her aesthetic. She wasn't just asking me to step aside. She was demanding I erase my entire existence from their lives for her convenience. You can't be serious, I finally managed to say, my voice trembling. You're asking me to abandon my family, my parents, my brother, because I don't fit your image. I'm not asking. She corrected me, her eyes like chips of ice. I'm telling you what needs to happen for Leo's future to be secure. If you refuse, I will make things very difficult. I can make sure Leo sees you as a jealous, disruptive force. Trust me, Evelyn. She added, picking up her fork again as if we were discussing the weather. I know how to manage a narrative. You don't want to be on the wrong side of mine. I left the restaurant in a daze, her cruel words echoing in my head. I walked for miles without any destination, trying to process the sheer audacity and cruelty of her demand. How could anyone be so cold, and how could my brother be so blind to it? That night I called Leo. I needed to hear his voice, to connect with the brother I knew, not the man Chloe was molding. My hands were shaking as I dialed his number. Hey, Ev, what's up? He answered, his voice cheerful and oblivious. Leo, I had lunch with Chloe today. I started trying to keep my voice steady. Oh, great, she mentioned she was going to, getting some maid of honor stuff sorted. I took a deep breath. Not exactly. We had a difficult conversation. She said some things that were very upsetting. There was a pause on the other end. Upsetting? What do you mean? Chloe loves you. She's always saying how she wishes she had a sister like you. The lie was so blatant, so effortless, that it took my breath away. Leo, that's not true, she told me. She told me I didn't fit in with the life she's planning for you. She said I should disappear after the wedding. The silence that followed was heavy and terrifying. I could hear him breathing, but he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was strained. Evelyn, that's a crazy thing to say. You must have misunderstood her. Chloe can be very direct. It's part of her job. Maybe she was just trying to say you should be more ambitious. You know, spread your wings. No, Leo, I insisted, my voice cracking. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She was crystal clear. She wants me gone. Look, Ev, he said, and his tone shifted from confused to annoyed. Wedding planning is incredibly stressful. Chloe is under a lot of pressure. You're probably just being a little too sensitive. Please don't start drama now. Everything is going so perfectly. My heart shattered. He didn't believe me. He had chosen, without a moment's hesitation, to believe her version of reality over mine. He was defending her, making excuses for her, and painting me as the problem. He was so caught in her web that he couldn't see the spider sitting in the middle of it. The brother I had known my entire life, the one who was supposed to be my closest ally, was gone. In his place was a stranger, a mouthpiece for a woman who was systematically trying to dismantle our family. I ended the call with a hollow "Okay, Leo," and hung up before he could hear me sob. His dismissal was the proof I needed. This wasn't just Chloe being a bridezilla, this was a calculated, manipulative campaign. And if she was capable of this, what else was she hiding? My grief began to curdle into a cold, hard resolve. She thought I was a small person who would just roll over and vanish. She had no idea who she was dealing with. My job as a translator wasn't just about swapping words from one language to another. It was about deep analysis, research, and understanding context. It was about finding the truth in a text. I decided to apply those skills to Chloe. If she was building a narrative, I was going to deconstruct it, sentence by sentence, until I found the ugly truth she was trying to hide. My investigation began that night. My first step was to treat Chloe like a foreign text I needed to translate. Her public-facing language was her social media. I had followed her accounts passively before, but now I dove in with an analyst's eye. Her profiles were a carefully curated highlight reel of success and luxury, lavish vacations, exclusive parties, and glowing posts about her high-powered career as a marketing director at a prestigious tech firm. It was the image of a woman who had it all. I started with her career. She often tagged her company, so I went to their official website. I searched the employee directory for Chloe. Nothing. I tried different spellings. Still nothing. That was odd for a director-level position. I then navigated to their LinkedIn page and looked through the list of employees. She wasn't there. My heart started beating faster. This was the first major crack. I called my best friend, Maya. As an HR manager, she knew the corporate world inside and out. I explained the situation, omitting the part about Chloe wanting me to disappear, and simply framed it as me being curious about my future sister-in-law's impressive career. "That's weird, Ev," Maya said after I told her what I'd found. "A director would definitely be listed, but sometimes companies have weird internal titles. Let me do some digging. I have a friend who works in their finance department." While Maya worked her magic, I continued my own research. I went back through Chloe's social media history, scrolling back years. Before she met Leo, her posts were different, less glamorous, more normal. There were pictures of her in a small apartment that looked nothing like her current luxury condo. There were posts about struggling with student loans and working at a local coffee shop. The timeline showed a dramatic shift about 2 years ago, just before she met my brother. Suddenly, the posts became more aspirational. She started using hashtags like #girlboss and #marketingguru. It was as if she had decided to become a new person overnight. I did a deep dive on her education. She claimed to have an MBA from a top-tier university. The university's alumni network was public. I searched her name, no results. I called the registrar's office, claiming to be from a company doing an education verification. They confirmed it. Chloe had never been a student there. She had never even applied. The lies were piling up, each one more audacious than the last. She wasn't a marketing director. She didn't have an MBA. The entire persona she had presented to my brother and my family was a complete fabrication. But why? The answer, I suspected, had to do with money. My phone buzzed. It was Maya. "Okay, Ev, I have the tea," she said, her voice serious. My friend checked the payroll records. Chloe does work there, but she's not a director. She's a junior-level assistant in the marketing department. Her salary is a fraction of what a director would make, and my friend said she's constantly in debt, always asking for advances. She lives way beyond her means. It all clicked into place. The expensive clothes, the fancy restaurants, the luxury condo. It was all a facade, likely financed by credit cards and a desperate hope of landing someone who could pay for it all. Someone like my brother. Leo wasn't just a soulmate to her, he was a financial rescue plan. Then I stumbled upon the most damning piece of evidence. While searching online public records, I found a series of small claims court filings against her from previous landlords for unpaid rent and a civil suit from a former roommate over stolen property. It was a pattern of deception and financial irresponsibility, but the final piece of the puzzle fell into place when I thought about the wedding fund. My parents had given them a check for $50,000 from their retirement savings. I had a sickening feeling about it. I called my dad, and under the guise of wanting to help with wedding budgeting, I asked if the check had been cashed and where it had gone. "That's a good question, honey," he said. "That's a good question, honey," he said. "Your mother and I were just talking about that. Leo told us they put it in a special high-yield savings account for the wedding, but Chloe was the one who handled the deposit. My blood ran cold. I asked my dad for the check number and the date it was cleared. Armed with this information, I called Maya again. Her connections were my only hope. It was a long shot, but I asked if her friend in finance could discreetly see if any large personal debt payments had been made from Chloe's accounts around that date. It was an overstep, but Meyer understood the urgency in my voice. An hour later, she called back. "Evelyn, it's worse than we thought. That same week your parents' check was deposited. Chloe paid off nearly $48,000 in high interest personal loans and credit card debt. That money never went to a wedding account. It's gone. The truth was a heavy, ugly thing. Chloe wasn't just a liar. She was a predator who had targeted my brother and stolen my parents' life savings. Her demand for me to disappear wasn't about her image. It was about removing the one person in the family who was perceptive enough to see through her act. She knew I was a threat, a loose thread that could unravel her entire tapestry of lies. My first instinct was to run to Leo and my parents and lay it all out. But Leo's earlier dismissal echoed in my mind. He was completely under her spell. If I went to him with accusations, she would twist it. She would claim I was a jealous sister digging up dirt to ruin her happiness. She would paint me as vindictive and unhinged, and Leo, blinded by love, would believe her. A direct confrontation would only isolate me further and allow her to control the narrative, just as she'd threatened. No, I couldn't just tell them the truth. I had to show them. I had to present it in a way that was irrefutable, leaving no room for her to spin, lie, or manipulate her way out. The wedding was her grand stage, the culmination of her masterful performance. It was only fitting that it should also be the stage for her downfall. The rehearsal dinner was in 1 week. It would be the perfect venue, an intimate gathering of the closest family and friends the night before the main event. It was my only chance. My plan began to form, piece by painful piece. I spent the next few days gathering my evidence into a coherent, undeniable presentation. As a translator, I knew the importance of clear, concise communication and verifiable sources. I compiled everything into a single, devastating file, screenshots of her fake LinkedIn profile next to the real company directory, a recorded phone call with the university registrar's office confirming her lack of an MBA recorded legally in my one-party consent state, copies of the public court filings for her debts and lawsuits, and the final, brutal proof, a bank statement summary anonymized by Maya's friend to protect their identity, showing a $50,000 deposit followed immediately by massive debt repayments. This collection of facts was the weapon, but I needed to deliver it with surgical precision. I was the maid of honor. I was expected to give a speech at the rehearsal dinner. Traditionally, it's a toast filled with sweet anecdotes and well wishes. Mine would be different. It would be a translation of Chloe's character from the fiction she had written into the non-fiction she had lived. I reached out to my friend Maya, who was also invited to the wedding. I told her everything, the whole sordid story from the lunch to the financial theft. She was horrified, but not surprised. That woman is a sociopath, Ev. I knew something was off about her. What do you need me to do? I need a backup, I said. I'm going to present this at the rehearsal dinner. She will try to shut me down. Leo might try to stop me. I need you to make sure the evidence is seen. We devised a simple but effective plan. I put the entire dossier onto a dozen USB drives. I also created a simple, password-protected website that laid out all the evidence in a clear timeline. The link and password would be on a small card accompanying each USB drive. Maya's job would be to discreetly hand these to key people, my parents, Leo's best man, our closest aunts and uncles. Right before I started my speech, she would tell them it was a digital scrapbook of Leo and Chloe that I had prepared to be opened after my toast. The night before the dinner, I sat in my quiet apartment, surrounded by the evidence of Chloe's deception. I felt no joy, no triumphant thrill of impending revenge. I just felt a profound sadness for my brother, for the heartbreak he was about to endure, and for the family that was about to be fractured. But I knew I had to do it. To stay silent would be to let this parasite drain my family dry and discard the pieces. My job wasn't just to translate words anymore, it was to translate the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The rehearsal dinner was held in a private room at an elegant restaurant. The air was thick with anticipation and champagne-fueled laughter. There were about 30 people there, the wedding party, our parents, and a few close relatives. Chloe was radiant, gliding through the room in a white silk dress, her arm linked with Leo's. She looked every bit the perfect bride. When she saw me, she shot me a look that was both a triumphant smirk and a silent warning. She thought she had won. I felt a cold calm settle over me as I took my seat. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. Across the room, Maya gave me a subtle, reassuring nod. The USB drives were ready. After the main course, Leo's father, my dad, stood up to give a heartfelt toast to the happy couple. Then it was the best man's turn. Finally, Leo tapped his glass and smiled at me, and now for a few words from my wonderful sister and Chloe's maid of honor, Evelyn. All eyes turned to me. Chloe's smile was plastered on her face, but I could see the tension in her jaw. This was it. As I walked to the front of the room, Maya began her work, moving gracefully between tables, handing out the small, ribbon-tied packages. A little surprise from Evelyn. She whispered to each person, "She'll tell you when to open it." I stood before them, a microphone in my hand. I looked at my parents, their faces beaming with pride. I looked at Leo, his eyes full of love for the woman beside him. And then I looked at Chloe, whose confident smile was beginning to falter as she watched me distribute the packages. "Good evening, everyone." I began, my voice clear and strong. "We're here tonight to celebrate the union of two people, my brother, Leo, and his fiancée, Chloe. A maid of honor speech is supposed to be about sharing happy memories and wishing the couple a lifetime of joy, and I do wish that more than anything. But I also believe that a lifetime of joy must be built on a foundation of truth." A confused murmur rippled through the room. Leo's smile tightened. Chloe's face had gone pale, as a translator. I continued, "I've learned that things are not always what they seem. Nuance is everything. Subtext is critical. For the last year, we have all come to know Chloe, or rather, the version of her she presented to us, the successful marketing director with an MBA from a top university." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. The thing about translations is that you need to be accurate, so I did some fact-checking, and I'm afraid there has been a serious mistranslation. The truth is, Chloe is not a marketing director. She's a junior assistant. The truth is, she does not have an MBA. The university she claims to have attended has no record of her. Gasps echoed around the room. Leo shot to his feet. "Evelyn, what are you doing? Stop this right now." I looked directly at him, my heart aching. "No, Leo, I won't. I let you be blinded for too long." I turned my attention back to the guests. "In the packages Maya has given you, you'll find a small USB drive. Please, feel free to open it now. You'll find all the documentation there. The court records for her history of debt and theft, the proof of her employment, the confirmation from the university. It's all there." Chloe stood up, her face a mask of fury. "She's lying. She's always been jealous of me, of our happiness. Am I jealous of the fact that you stole $50,000 from our parents?" I asked, my voice ringing with cold fury. The room fell into a deathly silence. My mother let out a small sob. My father's face was ashen. "Leo, Mom, Dad, the money you gave them for the wedding, it never went to a wedding account. Chloe used it to pay off her massive personal debts. The proof is on that drive as well. A bank record showing the deposit and the immediate debt payments that followed. She saw our family not as a family, but as a financial solution, a rescue package." I finally turned my gaze fully on Chloe, who was now trembling, cornered, and exposed. "You told me that the greatest gift I could give you for your wedding was to disappear from this family. You were wrong. The greatest gift I can give my family is the truth. The gift is you disappearing from ours." With that, I placed the microphone back on the stand. The room was in chaos. My parents were looking at the evidence on a laptop someone had opened, their faces a mixture of horror and disbelief. Leo was staring at Chloe, his adoring expression finally shattered, replaced by dawning, sickening comprehension. Chloe looked from his face to mine, saw there was no escape, and without another word, she grabbed her purse and fled the room. The wedding, of course, did not happen. The days that followed the rehearsal dinner were a blur of cancelled vendors, awkward phone calls, and a heavy, oppressive silence in my parents' home. Chloe had vanished completely, disconnecting her phone and deleting her social media profiles. The perfect narrative she had built had been erased in a single night. Leo was destroyed. He locked himself in his apartment for a week, refusing to see or speak to anyone. When he finally emerged, he came to my door. He looked broken, his face hollowed out by grief and shame. We sat in my quiet living room for a long time without speaking. "You were right," he finally whispered, his voice hoarse. "You were right about everything. I'm so sorry, Evelyn. I didn't listen. I didn't want to see." There was no "I told you so" in me. I just saw my brother, wounded and betrayed, and my heart went out to him. "She fooled all of us for a while, Leo. She was good at it. But I should have known," he said, tears welling in his eyes. "You're my sister. I should have trusted you." The road to recovery for our family was long and painful. My parents were able to file a fraud complaint against Chloe, and though recovering the money was a complex legal battle, the process of taking action gave my father a sense of purpose. My mother mourned the loss of the future she had imagined for her son, but her resilience, as always, shone through. She focused on holding us together. Leo's healing was the most difficult. He had to grapple with the fact that his entire relationship had been a lie, a meticulously crafted illusion. He went to therapy to work through the betrayal and to understand how he had allowed himself to be so completely manipulated. Slowly, painstakingly, he began to rebuild his life and his trust in his own judgment. Our relationship, Leo's and mine, was forever changed. The old, easy dynamic was gone, replaced by something deeper and more honest. He no longer saw me as just his quiet little sister. He saw me as the person who had pulled him from a fire, even though it meant burning down the house he thought he was building. The foundation of our family, which Chloe had tried so hard to shatter, proved to be stronger than her lies. It was damaged, yes, but it was not broken. We rebuilt it together, with honesty and a newfound appreciation for the quiet strength that had been there all along. I still work as a translator, finding meaning in the spaces between words. But I learned the most important lesson not from a book, but from my own life. Sometimes the most critical act of translation is to reveal a truth that has been deliberately hidden. And sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one that speaks with the most power.